What if I told you that the only thing standing between the life you have and the life you want is just 6 months of radical discipline? Most people try to change everything all at once, and that's exactly why nothing changes. Success isn't built on scattered effort, it's built on concentrated focus. When you try to master 5 things at once, you end up mastering none. But if you take 6 months and choose to master one essential area each month, you'll not only grow, you'll multiply. Because mastery in one area spills over into the others, it strengthens your identity, it rewires how you think, and it upgrades your results across the board. Month 1 is where the momentum begins. You don't need to start with a massive overhaul. You need to start with something powerful enough to shift your entire rhythm. For most people, that's the morning. Why? Because how you start your day determines how you manage your day. And how you manage your day determines how you shape your destiny. Waking up with purpose instead of panic, that's a game changer. It's not about being a morning person. It's about being a disciplined person. The alarm clock isn't your enemy. It's your training ground. And if you win those first 90 minutes of the day, you've already separated yourself from 90% of the world. Once your mornings are under control, the next focus might be your money. Not because money is everything, but because your stewardship reveals your discipline. Money isn't just a resource, it's a mirror. It shows how well you manage what's in your hands. Mastering money doesn't mean making millions instantly. It means you know where every dollar is going. It means you're not guessing. You're governing. You stop reacting and start strategizing. You stop spending emotionally and start investing intentionally. By the 3rd month, you're not just changing actions, you're changing identity. That's when it's time to master your mindset. Because no matter how strong your schedule is, if your self-talk is toxic, your growth will plateau. Mastering your mindset means taking responsibility for the words you say to yourself. It means replacing self-doubt with strategy and fear with focus. When your inner dialogue shifts from "I hope I can" to "I'm becoming the person who does," that's when real transformation begins. Month 4 might be about mastering your physical health, because your body is not just your vehicle, it's your vote. Every choice you make with food, sleep, and movement either casts a vote for your future or against it. When you treat your body like it's optional, you slow down your mind, your energy, and your execution. You can't build $1 million life with a bankrupt vessel. So you start showing up for your health the same way you'd show up for a high-stakes meeting, prepared, committed, and consistent. Month 5 could be dedicated to mastering your relationships, because the wrong people in your circle can pull you back further than the right strategies can pull you forward. Who you listen to determines what you believe. And what you believe shapes what you do. Mastering relationships isn't just about cutting people off. It's about becoming the kind of person who attracts and cultivates powerful, purpose-aligned connections. It's not about being liked. It's about being aligned. And month 6, that's where it all compounds. That's where you look at your life and realize you're no longer surviving. You're designing. That month might be about mastering your time. Because once you've gained control of your mornings, your money, your mind, your health, and your circle, the final frontier is how you manage what can't be bought back. Your time. Every minute now becomes a seed. You don't just fill time, you invest it. You don't just chase goals, you follow systems. And with systems in place, success is no longer a mystery. It becomes predictable. This plan works because it respects the process. You don't rise to the level of your ambition. you fall to the level of your systems. By mastering one thing at a time, you eliminate overwhelm and create undeniable proof that change is possible. Not someday, not eventually, but now. One decision, one area, 1 month at a time. And here's what happens. The first win builds belief. That belief fuels the next win. Momentum takes root. Confidence rises. Identity shifts. You stop saying, "I wish I could," and start living like, "This is who I am now." That's not motivation, that's mastery, and mastery, stacked over 6 months, doesn't just lead to success. It makes success sustainable. Everyone wants the shortcut. They want the secret formula, the magic bullet, the one hack that makes everything easier. But here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Discipline is the real shortcut. It's not sexy, it's not flashy, but it works every time, because while the world keeps chasing hacks, the disciplined person is quietly building an unshakable foundation. One decision, one habit, one day at a time. Discipline is the gap between intention and execution. It's what turns "I should" into "I did." It doesn't care how you feel, it only responds to what you do. And the sooner you stop negotiating with your feelings, the sooner your future gets activated. Most people are led by how they feel in the moment. The disciplined are led by who they want to become. That's the difference. That's the edge. There is no version of greatness that doesn't include discipline. None. The athletes, the leaders, the builders, the creators, they all have something in common. They do it even when it's not convenient. They show up when it's boring. They execute when no one's clapping. Because they're not chasing a mood. They're moving on mission, and mission always beats mood. You don't need more motivation. You need a decision. Motivation is loud, but it fades fast. Discipline is quiet, but it lasts forever. It doesn't yell in your ear. It lives in your choices. Motivation gets you started. Discipline keeps you going. Motivation wears off. Discipline wears in. It becomes part of you, a default, a new standard. People say they're trying to be disciplined, but trying is a half-hearted commitment with an exit strategy. Discipline doesn't try. It decides. It says, "This is who I am now," and backs it up with repeated action. It's not about being perfect. It's about being persistent. Missing a day doesn't break the disciplined. Why? Because their identity isn't tied to the mistake. It's tied to the mission. Discipline is the hidden cost of every dream. You want freedom. It costs discipline. You want peace of mind. Discipline. You want to build something that lasts. That's right. Discipline. Freedom doesn't come from doing what you want whenever you feel like it. That's chaos disguised as comfort. Real freedom comes from the structure that discipline provides, the kind that gives you options because you've already made the hard choices early. You've sacrificed short-term ease for long-term impact. Success is not found in the massive moment. It's hidden in the mundane. It's waking up early when you'd rather sleep in. It's saying no to distractions when it's easier to scroll. It's staying focused when everyone else is looking for a way out. Discipline isn't about punishment, it's about alignment. It's choosing actions that are consistent with the future you say you want. If you want results no one else has, you have to be willing to do what no one else does. Discipline separates dreamers from doers. Talk is cheap. Consistency is expensive, and the price is paid daily. But the reward, it's exponential. While others are still starting over for the 10th time, the disciplined have built something unshakable. And here's the truth. Discipline gets easier the more you use it. At first, it feels like resistance, but over time it becomes rhythm. What once felt hard becomes normal. What once felt like sacrifice becomes your new standard. You're not forcing yourself anymore. You've reprogrammed yourself, because every time you choose discipline, you cast a vote for the person you're becoming, and enough votes in the same direction. That's identity change. Discipline creates clarity. It silences the noise. You don't need to chase every opportunity when you're laser focused on the one thing that matters. You stop being reactive and start being intentional. You stop being controlled by circumstances and start creating them. That's the power of discipline. It doesn't just shape habits, it shapes who you are. The world is filled with talented people who never made it because they lacked discipline. And it's filled with average people who rose to greatness because they mastered it. Talent might open the door, but discipline builds the house. Discipline shows up when talent doesn't feel like it. Discipline keeps the promises that your excitement made, and discipline turns potential into proof. There are no shortcuts, but if there were, it would be called discipline. It's the only path that leads to lasting transformation. Not just results, but the ability to sustain those results. Discipline doesn't just change what you do, it changes what you tolerate. It raises your standard, and with it, your entire life rises too. So stop looking for easier paths. Build the muscle that creates paths. Choose discipline, not because it's easy, but because it's effective. Because once you choose it, you'll never go back to average again. A calendar is filled with intentions. A covenant is built on identity. Most people live their lives by a to-do list that they forget by noon. They schedule habits but don't honor them. They make commitments but break them the moment convenience shows up. That's the difference between a calendar and a covenant. A calendar reminds you what to do. A covenant reminds you who you are. When you write something on a calendar, it's often just a hope, something you'd like to get done if the day goes well. But when you make a covenant, it becomes non-negotiable. It becomes sacred. You don't show up because it's easy. You show up because it's who you've decided to be. And when your actions align with your identity, that's when real transformation happens. This is the reason most people never change. They set goals with their head, but they haven't made a vow with their heart. They schedule workouts, but they haven't vowed to become healthy. They plan their budget, but they haven't vowed to become financially wise. They write down the morning routine, but they haven't vowed to become disciplined. The plan is there, but the internal agreement is missing. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the strength of your agreements. You fall to the level of your covenant, because a covenant holds even when motivation fails. A covenant doesn't care how you feel today. It calls you back to who you committed to becoming. It holds you accountable when no one's watching. It keeps your standard in place when the world is tempting you to lower it. You can't build a new life with casual agreements. The habits that change your life must be treated like non-negotiables, not suggestions. Think about how a marriage works when it's rooted in covenant. It endures highs and lows, not because it's convenient, but because it's committed. You don't leave when it gets hard. You don't renegotiate every time it's uncomfortable. You fight to stay aligned because the vow matters. That same mindset must be applied to the habits you claim will change your life. So ask yourself, have you made a real covenant with your future? Or are you flirting with your potential while still negotiating with your past? Because until you decide who you are and bind that identity with unbreakable resolve, your schedule will always be up for debate. Life will throw curveballs and your calendar will fall apart. But when your identity is rooted in covenant, you adjust the schedule without abandoning the mission. Covenants create clarity. They eliminate the need to overthink. You no longer ask, should I do this today? The decision is already made. You don't wake up and debate whether to show up for your routine, your goals, or your standard. You act out of who you are, not how you feel. That kind of clarity gives you back energy. It reduces friction. It ends the war with indecision. A calendar gets canceled. A covenant gets fulfilled. That's why people with a calendar alone struggle to be consistent. They haven't made the shift from convenience to conviction. Conviction shows up rain or shine. Conviction doesn't care about applause. Conviction keeps promises behind closed doors. When the emotion is gone, conviction stays. That's the power of covenant, and understand this. A covenant isn't just a declaration. It's a daily decision. It must be revisited, protected, and reinforced. It means rewriting your language. Instead of saying, I'll try to wake up early, you say, I am the type of person who wakes up early because my future deserves it. Instead of saying, I hope I can stay focused, you say, I don't tolerate distractions because I value my purpose. Your words matter. They reinforce your covenant. Every I am you speak is a signature on the agreement between you and your next level. And if you keep breaking your own word, it's not just your schedule that suffers, it's your identity. Every time you skip what you said you would do, you're not just losing time, you're eroding trust with yourself. But every time you follow through, even when it's hard, you're casting a vote for the person you've committed to becoming. The difference between a temporary change and a transformed life is this. One is written in ink, the other is written in identity. One can be erased when it's inconvenient. The other stands even when life pushes back. Build your plan on covenant, not convenience. Decide who you are. Vow to become it. Show up with consistency. And let that covenant carry you when the calendar can't. Transformation doesn't start by adding more. It begins by removing what weakens you. You don't need a longer to-do list. You need a shorter list of tolerations, because the truth is, you're not just held back by what you're not doing. You're also being drained by what you keep allowing. The habits, the distractions, the noise, the people, the weights you carry that aren't meant to be carried into your next level. If you want to rise, you have to release. Growth isn't just about addition. It's about subtraction with precision. Most people try to build something new on top of something broken. They set goals but never clear space. They dream of clarity while living in clutter. But you can't heal in the same environment that made you sick. You can't build discipline surrounded by chaos. You can't level up while clinging to what pulls you down. You don't need more effort. You need less interference. Start with your environment, because your surroundings speak to you. That messy desk, those unchecked notifications, the tabs you never close, they don't just exist around you. They shape what happens inside you. Mental fog isn't just in your head, it's in your environment. The clutter outside reflects the confusion inside. And once you clean up your space, you clear up your mind. Simplicity creates focus, and focus births execution. Then look at your digital life. Most people are connected to distraction all day long. Every beep, ping, and swipe is a slow drain on your attention. You start the day with purpose and lose it to endless scrolls. You have a vision for your life, but it's constantly interrupted by someone else's opinion, highlight reel, or marketing funnel. Remove the noise, unfollow what doesn't align, silence what doesn't grow you, because your future is too important to be drowned in distractions. But the hardest part of removal isn't physical clutter or digital noise, it's emotional attachment. The routines you've outgrown, the relationships that no longer support your evolution, the identities you cling to because they're familiar, even when they're no longer true. Growth requires grief. Letting go means something dies. Maybe it's the comfort of being average. Maybe it's the applause of people who prefer your old self. But if you don't remove what weakens you, you'll sabotage what strengthens you. Not everyone around you can go where you're going. Some people are chapters, not lifelines, and the longer you keep them in the wrong role, the more they rewrite your narrative. Energy is contagious. You can't keep close company with bitterness, laziness, or excuses and expect excellence. Odd, it your circle like it's your future on the line, because it is. Loyalty isn't staying the same. It's being honest about what supports growth and what stalls it. Sometimes the biggest weakness is the voice inside your own head. The thoughts you let repeat, the stories you tell yourself, the excuses you've believed for years. You have to evict the inner critic and silence the victim mindset. You're not powerless. You're not stuck. You're just accustomed to a pattern, but patterns can be broken. And when you remove the belief that says, "This is just who I am," you create space for a new version to emerge. Don't be afraid to let go of what no longer serves you. Because holding on costs more than you think. It costs your energy. It costs your peace. It costs your progress. Imagine dragging a weight behind you for months, then wondering why you're tired every day. That's what happens when you don't remove what weakens you. You're not lazy. You're loaded down. Success isn't always about working harder. It's about working cleaner, removing friction, removing resistance. Removing the things that waste your willpower and weaken your focus. Your energy is limited. Don't waste it fighting battles that don't matter, arguing with people who don't understand, or proving yourself to those who don't care. Protect your energy like it's fuel, because it is. This process of removal isn't about perfection. It's about awareness. Start small. Identify what drains you daily. It could be the 10 minutes wasted in the morning, the constant checking of your phone, or the conversation that always turns toxic. Once you see it, call it out, then cut it off, because your life won't rise until your standards do. There's a version of you that's stronger, clearer, and more powerful, but it's buried under layers of distractions, tolerations, and misaligned habits. The breakthrough isn't in doing more, it's in doing less of what weakens you. When you remove the wrong things, the right things have room to grow. And when your energy is no longer divided, your results are no longer delayed. Success is not a solo project. It's not just about what you know or how hard you work, it's about who you're around. You don't just need strategy, you need proximity, because the people around you either fuel your future or drain your drive. You rise or fall to the level of your circle. If you want to go higher, you have to get around power, people who think bigger, move faster, and live with intentionality. Not people who tolerate your dreams, but people who ignite them. Most people are stuck, not because they lack potential, but because they lack the right proximity. They keep themselves in rooms where they're the most committed person, the one with the biggest vision, the only one pushing for more. And over time, that imbalance wears you down. You start shrinking to stay relatable. You start editing your language so you don't sound too ambitious. You stop dreaming out loud because the people around you only clap for what they understand. But here's the truth. Comfort is a silent killer, and staying around people who don't challenge you is the quickest way to sabotage your calling. Growth demands that you upgrade your environment. You don't plant seeds in dry soil and expect a harvest. You don't put a fire in a freezer and expect it to burn. You can have all the right intentions, but if your surroundings are wrong, your progress will stall. Proximity to power isn't about access to fame or titles. It's about being close to people who live what they say, people who are consistent, disciplined, and aligned, people who make you feel uncomfortable in the best way possible. Their life convicts you, their results wake you up, their mindset stretches you, and that's not a threat, it's a gift. When you get around power, your excuses sound different. They sound smaller, weaker. You realize how many of your limits were just agreements you made with average. The proximity exposes you, not to shame you, but to invite you higher. It reveals where you've been coasting, where you've been faking progress, where you've been hiding. And once you've tasted that environment, you can't go back to low-level thinking. The right environment doesn't just accelerate your growth. It redefines your identity. It raises your standard without asking. You start waking up earlier. You start moving with more clarity. You stop just consuming content and start executing with intention. You stop seeing accountability as pressure and start seeing it as protection. Because now mediocrity feels out of place, you've recalibrated what's normal, but proximity requires intentionality. You won't stumble into it. You have to seek it out. That might mean joining a new circle, investing in a mastermind, showing up to a room where no one knows your name, but everyone knows the mission. That might mean being the smallest in the room so you can grow into something greater. It takes humility to admit you need new voices, but it also takes wisdom to understand that you can't transform alone. And let's be real, sometimes the shift starts with subtraction. You may need to disconnect before you can reconnect. You can't hold hands with your old habits and expect new outcomes. Some connections are seasonal, others are situational. And if you're honest, you've probably been carrying people who were never meant to come with you. Not out of judgment, but out of awareness, because elevation requires separation. The voices you listen to will shape the life you live. If you constantly listen to people who play it safe, you'll start playing it small. If you take advice from people who have never built what you want, don't be surprised when your blueprint leads to disappointment. But when you put yourself in proximity to power, people with fruit on their tree, people who have walked the path you want to walk, you fast track your transformation. This is not about comparison. It's about alignment. It's about making sure your environment matches your assignment. Because when the room is right, your belief system changes, your speed changes, your identity shifts. And suddenly, what once felt impossible becomes expected, not because you're better, but because you're becoming. Get around power, not just energy, not just hype, but substance, character, consistency, wisdom, and let that proximity pull something out of you that complacency never could. You don't need everyone to understand your journey. You just need to be in a room where your future feels normal and your potential gets permission to breathe. Success is not a mystery, it's a pattern, and the people who unlock it consistently are not the ones who move the fastest. They're the ones who pay attention. They don't just work hard, they work smart. They track what they do, test what works, tweak what doesn't, and repeat what gets results. This is the rhythm of mastery. This is how progress becomes predictable. Without feedback, you're just guessing. But with clarity, you're building with intention. Most people stay stuck not because they're not trying, but because they're not tracking. They show up, they hustle, they work long hours, but they don't actually know what's working. They confuse motion with movement, but the winners, they know their numbers, they measure their habits, they review their progress, they treat their life like a business, because it is. If you're not tracking it, you're not serious about it. Start simple. You want to improve your morning routine, track it. Write down what time you wake up, what you do in the first 30 minutes, and how it impacts your day. Want to grow your income, track it. Monitor your cash flow, your spending, your investment decisions, and your skill development. Trying to improve your health. Don't just eat better. Track what you eat, when you sleep, how you move, how you feel. What gets tracked gets attention, and what gets attention gets better. Once you track, you gain data. Now you test. You start asking better questions. Does this action lead to the result I want? Is this strategy effective or just familiar? Am I improving, plateauing, or regressing? Testing doesn't mean reinventing the wheel. It means you stop running blind. You isolate what works and challenge what doesn't. You stop copying what everyone else is doing and start discovering what works for you. That's where tweaking comes in. Tweaking is refinement. It's the art of adjusting without quitting. Most people quit too early because they think what they're doing isn't working, when in reality they just haven't optimized it. They abandon good systems before they ever improve them. But the disciplined person doesn't give up. They make small shifts. They refine the message, they rework the schedule, they update the habit, and those tweaks create momentum. You don't need an overhaul. You need adjustments. Tiny hinges swing big doors. A 1% shift in your actions can lead to massive changes in your outcomes over time. But if you're not tracking, you'll never see it. And if you're not testing, you'll keep repeating what's ineffective. The tweak is where the growth lies. It's in the willingness to adapt without abandoning, to evolve without overreacting. And once you find what works, you repeat. That's the final key. You repeat the process, not just the action. You track again, you test again, you tweak again. Success isn't a one-time event. It's a lifestyle. It's a loop, a rhythm. Track, test, tweak, repeat, over and over. That's how excellence is created. That's how goals become standards. Repetition is what builds identity. Anyone can be consistent for a week, but the ones who win are the ones who build systems that outlive emotion. It's not about doing more, it's about doing better over and over. That's where confidence is born, not from hype, but from evidence. When you've repeated a successful pattern long enough, you don't just believe it works. You know it does. That knowing becomes your anchor, your advantage. Think about any high-performer athletes, CEO, creators, leaders. They live in this cycle. They review their performance constantly. They track their metrics. They evaluate what they said, what they did, how they responded. They tweak for the next game, the next quarter, the next launch. And they repeat what gets results. That's not obsession. It's stewardship. They are not guessing. They're governing. You don't have to be the most talented. You just have to be the most tuned in. Self-awareness is a superpower, and data creates that awareness. Stop relying on memory. Build a system. Write it down. Measure it. Review it. Whether it's a notebook, an app, or a spreadsheet, doesn't matter. What matters is that you stop treating your growth like a lottery ticket and start treating it like a formula. Track, test, tweak, repeat. It's not glamorous, it's not loud, but it's effective. It turns effort into evolution. It transforms activity into advancement. It's how the average become excellent, and how the excellent become unstoppable. When you embrace the loop, success is no longer a surprise. It becomes your system, your rhythm, your new normal.